Now, COVID-19 vaccines will supercharge Africa and global growth in 2021. That's according to a joint report by Allianz Research and Ola MS. However, there will be short-term headwinds and complete recovery can only be expected in 2022. The researchers noted that despite the hurdles on the demand and supply sides, vaccine rollout to vulnerable populations should be completed by mid this year. Now, let's tear into the report. And Selin Ozyurt is the senior economist at Ola MS France and Africa. She joins us live now from Paris for more on this. So, Selin, you do talk about COVID-19 vaccines fueling growth in Africa this year, but also mentioned that short-term headwinds and a complete recovery next year will create transitional risks. What are some of these risks that you see?
Okay, given the shock we had, 2021 will be definitely a year of recovery. There is no doubt on this. But there are important risks, and these risks are sanitary. The second wave of the pandemic, it needs to get under control, and the different mutations of the virus make things difficult. And the main risk, of course, is the slow progress with vaccination campaigns.
All right, so your report also recommends attraction of private investment in Africa and, in your own words, more than ever as an engine of growth. What are the sectors that you see as prime for these investors?
The private investment is needed because there's less, almost no fiscal space from the government to stimulate growth. But for private investors, there are quite attractive sectors. First of all, I can mention digitalization. All digital services sectors have a huge potential of growth in Africa. And secondly, there is energy sector. Africa has a tremendous unleashed potential for renewable energies. And third, I would mention the agri-food industry, which has also strong potential for high returns and growth.
Okay, so having said that, we also know that you've mentioned several challenges that African countries face. There's, of course, increased public spending, there's loss of government revenues, but also most critically, I would say, is the rising public debt. Some even think to unsustainable levels. So given all of these challenges, how do you see, or how can African countries maneuver around them?
Debt sustainability was already an issue before COVID-19, but things got worse with this COVID spending. We welcome the initiative from G20 to give some relief to highly indebted countries, but at the same time we fear that this initiative would not be enough, especially for tackling the private sector debt issue. So what needs to be done is to continue to attract private investment, and to do so, countries need to establish a predictable environment, and also they should have credible policies, both monetary policy and fiscal policy. But the good news is investors are willing to invest, and the interest rates are low in advanced economies, and they are set to stay low for a long time. So there is still big potential to continue to attract private investment and private capital to Africa.
All right, the World Bank projects global GDP next year to be 4.4% below pre-pandemic projections. And the World Bank says that that gap is going to be twice as large between the emerging markets and developing economies and advanced economies. So for how long do you see the effects of this pandemic lingering on for, especially here in Africa?
In our baseline scenario, things will get back to normal in 2022 with the reopening of all services and the tourism sectors. But the downside, the main risk to this is the progress with the vaccination campaign. And I should emphasize that we cannot talk about a global recovery, a return to normal in 2022, if Africa is still struggling with the sanitary crisis. Therefore, there is need for greater international cooperation to move fast with the vaccination campaign in Africa in 2021 and also next year.
All right, and you also mentioned the risk of social unrest in several countries in Africa, including South Africa. Does that mean that the measures that have been put in place so far are not enough?
We should put things into perspective, I should acknowledge that African governments reacted at the incredible speed, and the size of the stimulus was about 2.5% of GDP on the continent, and which is a lot compared to the little fiscal space they had. But now the main problem is what is next? What comes next? And the main emergency is to create jobs. Unemployment is the main problem, but also in advanced countries. So governments need to create jobs, and to do so, it should be in the private sector, given the small potential we have now with all the mounting debt in public sector. And to create jobs in Africa, there is strong need to enhance access to finance to very small and small enterprises.
All right, Selin, we appreciate your time tonight. Thank you very much for talking to us.